cat faunus led us through the cityscape. He was quiet. The only sound is the continually unnerving and annoying Beowulf howls. Every howl sent a cold shiver down my spine. I would shudder and look at the cat. He kept walking as if he heard nothing. It pissed me off. This guy acting so cool? The nerve of him, making me look like a scared child. I made a sound of contempt, causing him to look back.
You okay?
I don't need you checking up on me, cat. He just sighed and looked back forward. He is an idiot if he thinks I am a defenseless child. I am the Mistrali champion. In the middle of triumphant thought, a howl is heard, and it sounded very close, and I embarrassingly and audibly gasped. The cat started drawing his sword. How close? I meekly asked, hating myself for sounding so scared. He looked at the nearest door and kicked the door open. It looked like it would have been a small storehouse.
Get in here.
You don't tell me what to do, you feline menace! He then put a hand over my mouth and a finger to his lips. His eyes were more intense, similar to how he looked when he turned around after I had hit him in the back of the head when we landed in the warehouse. It sent a similar shiver down my spine that the howls cause. I just walked into the small storehouse. He follows me in and closed the door. He looked outside a small window in the back and tensed up, almost as if he was trying to keep himself there. That's
Beowulf. There's more of them nearby.
His tone was so even and calm that it shocked me how different it was from the glare in his eyes. The direction of his stare never wavered. It reminded me of hunting shows my adopted dad used to watch, where the hunter never once let the prey out of his sight. Are we safe?
For now. It looks like they're attempting to expand their area of hunting. That sniffing is sniffing for other Beowulf scents, not for food.
I looked back at the Grimm species as it sniffed. The cat seemed so certain. Surely he's just pulling this out of his ass. Grimm are just hunter-killers, not anything more or anything less. I was getting irritated by how calm he was and how much more knowledgeable he was than me. I was the champion, the cream of the crop, the best there is, and I could feel my legs shaking. Yet here is this mongrel standing as still as a statue watching the Grimm, as if he was watching wildlife in his backyard.
Well?
He backed away from the window, looking almost embarrassed or nervous. Then his eyebrows furrowed, almost as if he was deep in thought on how to answer. It wasn't a hard question! I screamed this in my mind.
It's kind of second nature for me at this point. I've studied them, tracked them, and fought them since I was 6-ish.
My brain stopped for just a second. 6? This guy has been fighting these monsters since he was 6? He's gotta be lying. No way could someone so young stand a chance against these things. Okay, fine. If you don't want to tell me, it's whatever. Just as long as you don't get me killed. I stated, and sat away from the window while the cat just stood there like a statue. His tail swayed like a cat stalking prey. I still couldn't tell what unnerved me more, the Grimm, or looking at this faunus who looked like he was holding himself back. The more I stared at his intensity, the more I actually believed what he said. The more I stared, the more I felt his intensity. It was like this overlaying cloud crushing around me. I felt this strange urge to shrink and hide. The only way I can describe it, that it's like two great powers, this mongrel and the Grimm. They were closing in, ready to clash. I realized that my breath was shaky, and my hand was on the Mertenaster. I sighed deeply and closed my eyes in an attempt to calm myself.
Hey, are you okay?
I opened my eyes to see he was sitting across from me. The intense stare was gone. Where are they?
I don't know.
What does that mean?
They're still around, but I can't see them. I say we stay here for another hour or so and see what they do.
He put his sword back into his sheath. Again, he is taking control. I wanted to say something. to respond with my usual fiery resolve. But he had a good point. Fine. I'll listen to you this time. I put emphasis on this time, so he understood that he is not leading the situation. It just so happened that his order benefited me as well. He closed his eyes and leaned his head back. He became like a statue. I could barely see him breathe. I took this time to think about my own situation. This faunus dolt got in my way. We tumbled through a warehouse window and now we're partners. Great! The one thing I didn't want to happen happened. It's not like I hate faunus. I don't feel like I'm racist towards them. I don't discriminate. I wouldn't get up from my table and move to another one just because a faunus sat down. I just don't trust faunus. They have caused nothing but trouble in this world. I'm sure somewhere there is a good faunus, but I haven't seen them. The White Fang and the Grey Roar. Two faunus extremist groups are the representatives of faunus right now in the world, and they truly just cause havoc and chaos, and every faunus I have spoken to agrees with their views. Hell, the Grey Roar killed my parents just because they were high-ranking executives for the Winchester Dust Company with controversial labor forces. It wasn't controversial. Mining is dangerous. The workers should have known that when they applied. Again, I'm not against faunus. Faunus hunters are extremely effective due to their increased reflexes, strength, and senses. I don't trust them in the slightest. All they do is beg and complain. But they don't stop their fellow faunus from killing and stealing. I looked back at the resting cat faunus before me. I don't hate him. I just think he's an uneducated fool who thinks he knows more than anyone else and tries to take control of everything. He acts like a savage at even the slightest sign of retaliation to how he acts.
You should rest. Not saying you have to, but who knows how much we'll have time to as we travel around.
Oh, shut up. Surely they wouldn't put us into a situation where we would actually die. Oh, shut up. Surely they wouldn't put us in a situation where we would actually die. The cat opened only his left eye, emerald green looking right into my own.
I hope you're right.
He stretched and got up, probably thinking now that rest was equally pointless. He looked out the window again.
Still clear,
he said, almost out of relief. He took a cloth out of his left pant pocket, took out a bottle of clear liquid, and poured it just a little bit on the cloth, followed by him drawing his sword. He sat down and wiped the cloth slowly across the thin blade. I could hear him mumbling something. It sounded like some kind of prayer with how it sounded. I could make out a few words. Verdos, branches, and Grimm. I have heard Verdos before in my religious class back in school. He was a warrior god of some kind. I couldn't remember any details, not that it mattered. He had finished his prayer, so he resheathed the sword. He noticed me staring.
It's a tradition in my family to...
Do I look like I care? I never asked him a question. Plus, I could figure it was a tradition of some kind. Most prayers are. He sighed and nodded. I was not in the mood to learn about him. I was in the mood to finish the stupid test and start training. Are we gonna leave? I asked, but he knew I was commanding we leave.
You sure? Beowulfs may still be around.
A bunch of growls were heard nearby. That chill coming back. The faunus' eyes went wide and held his index fingers to his lips, signaling against silence. He silently drew his sword and stood by the window again. I crawled over and stood by him, and my eyes went wide. There were 6 Beowulfs that I could see, and they were aggressively growling and sniffing the air around. At first, I thought they were looking for us. If this degenerate was correct, then my irritation and fear attracted them. My breathing began to quicken, and I felt like I should just run away and don't stop until I was safe. The faunus growled, and I looked at him. It didn't seem like he was staring at the numerous Grimm. I followed his glare and saw something that brought upon anxiety. A young man with blue hair shivered and looked pale. From fear, the faunus started moving, but I grabbed him. What the hell are you doing? I demanded quietly. He turned and looked at me. His eyes weren't intense like I expected them. He looked worried or scared.
I need to help him. I can't let him...
He swallowed the word. I would be lying if it didn't tug on my heartstrings a little bit, but I could not risk my opportunity. We need to be as healthy for as long as possible. One slip up and we die. The faunus growled and ran back towards the window.
As long as he doesn't attack, he'll be fine. Beowulfs are avid hunters. Rarely do they attack first, and they haven't cornered him yet, so he hasn't been detected.
He sounded as if he was trying to reassure himself. He looked nervous. I saw sweat dripping from him as if he ran a mile. I looked back at the young man. He was trembling. He held a small pistol in front of him.
Don't do it.
The faunus mumbled. His hands formed in a fist held so tight his knuckles became white.
Don't do it,
he said again. Now the faunus was shaking, but from almost anger instead of fear.
Don't fucking do it!
He's not doing anything!
God damn it, he's gonna do it!
I heard a gunshot, and before I could look to see what had happened, the faunus grabbed me and held my face against his chest. I couldn't see what was happening, but I could hear it. The screams, gunshots, the ripping, everything. Eventually, after about 5 minutes, the scream stopped and I heard the feeding. Normally, if a man was to do what this faunus did, I would severely injure him. But I couldn't move. I couldn't even protest. My mind couldn't comprehend what had just happened. The young man is dead. They didn't save him. Another minute passed until the cat let me go. I still didn't move. I was still looking at his chest, shaking like a leaf.
Don't look outside,
he warned. His voice sounded broken, but his words were said as if there would be serious repercussions if I did. I fell to my knees, not having any strength. What? My eyes were still locked on the ground. My breathing was shaky. Tears were welling up, the scream still present in my mind. How are we supposed to? The faunus sat in front of me and put his hand over my mouth.
Finish that sentence, and it'll be the death of both of us.
He smiled a little and stood up, unsheathing his sword.
Now, I'll be right back, Weiss. Do not watch. Close your eyes, or cover your ears if you have to. I promise, I'm not going to die.
I watched him walk. I wanted to call for him to come back. I didn't want to hear it again. Anything but those sounds. But he was already gone. Left me alone.